Hi, this is Michelle Ludala, and I am going to share a story of a first-year makerspace. I think it's more that than a lecture. So the three essential questions for this part of this week's lecture is: how do I start a makerspace? What is the purpose of a makerspace? And how can a makerspace transform learning? Basically, you're going to be looking at a photo album. This is my library back in 2011, and you'll notice that there are a whole lot of bookshelves. So there were bookshelves on the upper level. Then the students go down to the lower level. There are low bookshelves in that circle area there. And then there are tall stacks off to the side. And then if you go down even further, there were more stacks along the windows. So this was the library as it was constructed back in 2007. In 2012, we added some lounge furniture. And I'll quickly share just a little snippet of this video. Whoops. I'll quickly share a little snippet of this video, or not. Or maybe it's just a screenshot. But we had students, we had a PFA grant where we requested funding to purchase some furniture from IKEA, some lounge furniture, so we didn't have such traditional seating. So this is what it looked like once we got it. So you can see that loungy furniture right in front. That's my desk also. Students really loved it. And so we still had all of these tall bookshelves in the middle. That was our reference area. But in the summer of 2013, we weeded out the entire reference collection. So by the fall of 2013, there was no reference collection, and students could just sort of sit randomly, and there were no shelving in the middle area. So all that shelving came out in 2013, and we ended up with this big empty area. And one of the things that also happened in the summer of 2013 is we cleared out of our offices. So we literally sat on the library floor. Now, I've done that most of my library career, but we did have that office for a little while. I was in there for about a year and a half. But I did ask our other librarian to come out onto the floor so we could be there handy for the students. There's a lot of talk about getting rid of a circulation desk. That is not really going to work for us. This is really typically the beginning of a period 3, and we will literally have 75 kids lined up to check out materials. We used to get more when we circulated iPhone chargers and power cords for laptops, but now students are expected to bring their own, and we just got into a point where we were circulating so many and losing so many that we couldn't keep up, and we felt that we were kind of enabling kids. But for years we circulated phone chargers and earbuds and all kinds of things like that. Those 80-inch bookshelves in the back there, we had 8 of those, 4 on each side, and we removed them all. Actually, more than that one. Yeah. So we removed them all. This was our new principal. He came in. He said, "What are you doing with all those books, and where's your makerspace?" And that was kind of magic for me. So that was the summer of 2015. So again, we moved the whole collection, and this is what 7,000 books look like. That's what we had to get rid of. They were all gone. We had them, the football team came and boxed them all up, which was a huge, huge job. And they did it in 30 minutes. It was great. Yeah, some of them wanted to take some home, which was great. So there they all boxed up, and they did it in 30 minutes. And then we started the school year by introducing learning zones and asking students to think carefully about what it was that they wanted to do while they were in the library. And that worked for quite a while. And one student was really excited about, like, sort of, we called it low volume reading zone. And that's what this was designed to be. Unfortunately, it really didn't play out that way over the long course of time, but that was our 2011 shelving, 2013 shelving, 2015 shelving, 2016 shelving. We have nothing left after that. So this is what the library looked like in 2010, and this is what it looked like in 2015. And that's a book talk. We still have study carrels. They're extremely popular. And then we pitched the idea of what a makerspace might look like. So this was the upper library. Before it was all shelving. Oops, am I stuck here? And then this is what it looked like after we removed all that shelving. So we got leftover furniture, pockmarked, messed up, but it was the beginning of our makerspace. And we still had some loungy furniture in little pockets of corners, but we found that kids were learning very differently, and it looked really different in this new arrangement. So over the summer, we made some purchases, and then we opened the Makerspace. There's our principal for our TV news program, talking about what the Makerspace is. In last week's lecture, I believe that you saw an example of one of the videos we made to pitch the Makerspace. So we have Techsperts. These are students who are basically earning course credit to support technology needs of students and teachers. So basically our Makerspace started with markers and butcher block paper and Legos and a couple of crafty things. This was fun. This was one student who's like, wait, that's Mr. Stevenson's art, one of the history teachers. These guys created a Banny shelf for themselves. It was Buskar and Danny. We got some great stuff out of the tables. It was a really great way to decompress before the football game for, kids. These are seniors who are really just finding that it was a great de-stressor for them. So I can't say that there was a whole lot of crazy innovation happening, but it was a really wonderful way to get the school to start communicating differently and interacting differently. So one day I walked by and I found that they'd started, I don't even know what you call this, basically doing crafts, macrame, is what I used to think of it as. Teachers like to bring their children in, and this was our first of many, many gifts that we were given of creations that students created. I loved this example. This was a group of students came in on a Friday afternoon and started basically to do, they were doing basically motion propelled race cars. And the lessons that were the questions that they were asking themselves were great. So Jarrett discovered that his car was too heavy for the wheels that were pulling it. John's went faster, but Matthew's went farther. Was it weight, momentum, or friction that slowed John's cars down? So suddenly I started realizing that the conversations that they're having around, what looks like simple, very simple play, were actually pretty sophisticated. Students would come back to projects. So this is a project that she started one day and she came back and started adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. The popsicle structures got way more sophisticated as time went on. Lucy and Sarah presented this. They said they had more fun waiting at school for activities than going home and coming back. We created a Techspert hub for our Techsperts so that they could facilitate the learning in the Makerspace. We had a take-apart station. We created a little bit of a media lab there. Students started to work on Arduino independently. We had an esports team. And then we were asked to put together an agenda of how the year was going to roll out. So we created sort of an agenda. We didn't completely adhere to it, but it was nice to have a program in place that we were going to focus on different things. We created a take-apart station. Take apart quickly becomes smash apart, so it's something to be mindful of. Dole out your resources slowly. The hot glue gun was huge, and then we had the set designer for our plays come down and start using the Makerspace with students. We created a website with a number of suggestions. We really wanted to get people to participate in populating the Makerspace with resources. We asked some questions, we crowdsourced questions about what 3D printer to get. One of our former employees started a quilting store and ended up giving us a whole lot of fabric. And we started a media lab, so you can see it's not too sophisticated. I was the first user, but then it caught on pretty fast. The teachers loved that video, by the way. I was showing students how to use one of our databases. We created a schedule of our Techsperts to make sure that somebody was on staff most of the time, or at least most days. We started Sphero. We bought a Sphero, and that's a little robotic globe that rolls around and students can control it from their phone. The Arduino project was progressing. The Media Lab was getting more use. Take Apart Station was getting more use. Students started creating very unsophisticated ways of making suggestions about what it was that they wanted. And then the textperts would really come in and sort of take a tool and bring it out and play with it to try to entice other people. So we experimented with allowing students to eat in the makerspace to try to draw more kids in. This was Peter. He loved Take Apart. Google Cardboard. We got Little Bits, which were a ton of fun. And within minutes, kids were doing all kinds of robotic commands or making it do stuff. We got a 3D printer on the recommendation of our tech ed, our career and tech education director. These are our student interns. We got Cubelets on the recommendation of Nikki Robertson. Students love those. And the Media Lab continues. Stencils are hugely popular. And then we started having workshops. These were bibliography workshops in the Makerspace. And then we did origami workshops. We did a citation workshop. We got a tackle box to store little bits, restocking. The storage challenge is kind of ongoing. I always have a giant mess in the kitchen, and we're going to have to shift that up. But it's always a mess. Like, that is something that you just kind of have to come to terms with. And the disadvantage to putting your makerspace in the front and center in the library is that the first thing people see when they walk in is a big giant mess. So I might advise against it, although for us it worked really well for that first year. This was a video that was created against the green screen. It was a Percy Jackson book trailer. Students were brought in to create crafts in the makerspace with a teacher. So that's the end of the 3 days that they spent creating some kind of a 3D representation of theme or character development in this book that they'd read. They're presenting to the rest of the class, and that's the teacher off to the side. We got charging stations for the library because one of the problems we had, this was all shelving before, and one of the problems you have with taking out shelving and just putting in a makerspace is there tends not to be a lot of power outlets where those shelves were, so that's something to be mindful of. Elliot started vlogging regularly about the Boy Scouts. We had a lot of professional learning community meetings there. We created an origami books. We did a little workshop around that. This was a planning meeting between me and another teacher where I basically moved my desk to the middle of the makerspace for quite a while. And it led to some great doodling that really got us to think about big picture research process. So it really was a great inspirational space for all of us, teachers included. Upcycling old CDs. We changed a bookshelf into basically a display case. Each student who was really kind of a high usage makerspace user got a shelf and was able to decorate it however they wanted. We suspended a lot of student work from the ceiling, which was not popular with administrators and parents. This is a parent in the community, and she also works for a library design firm, so she was helping us with some sketches and long-range planning. We did a visual literacy project where students were looking for messages and media messages and advertising. This was a progressive era project for AP World History or AP US History. Bhaskar came every day and did something that day. He was working on a birthday card. And Elliot's vlog continued. Recycled materials are just great. These blue bottles were beautiful. Students loved them. So this was preparing for an origami workshop on how to make those little booklets. We did some virtual connection with the Little Bits community. These two girls wanted to make an app. We helped English teachers who wanted to create videos for flipping in the Media Lab. We had lots and lots of donations. And Luca really took to the makerspace in ways that I think were transformative for him. He started this little project one day with paint, toilet paper rolls, and yarn, and a little bit of glitter, and you'll see what it evolved into. The textbooks showing students how to use Little Bits. We did a lot of book talks in the makerspace. We found that when kids could actually handle Legos and manipulatives, they were much more focused on what we were talking about. Again, organization, really hard to keep it organized. We would change the table covers periodically and just and save the highlights of each tablecloth. So we would just cut them out and display them. Lots and lots of resources can be made. Like recycled products are awesome for a makerspace. So this was Luca's cactus garden. So I talked about toilet paper rolls, yarn, paint, glitter, beads, some paper. That was it. He made a cactus garden out of it. That was him working on that cactus garden, and it became our sort of our motto for the makerspace. RJ was also a regular makerspace user. This is our making origami book workshop. So we were using YouTube and instruction, and I'd had a couple models. For English, students had to create, it was basically they were working on dioramas of a book that they'd read, which was an interesting way of putting it together. But that was Dylan, who's a big Beyonce fan. Organization, you're constantly going to be shifting it up. And so I went from the shelves to the cart to this. Raspberry Pi, we figured it out, and they started to make a gaming station out of it, which was very popular. Random gifts showed up on my desk. We made this on the 3D printer. This was Margot Roth Spiegelman, who's a character in Paper Towns. This was her bedroom. This was an origami project that was made for an English class. We had a lot of professional learning happening in the makerspace just because we were planted there and people wanted to come learn. We had vendor meetings in the makerspace. RJ continues to make odd items. The origami books required a lot of time and patience and practice. And then I went to MIT workshop in Boston over February break to get some ideas from a program that they were running there. This may look like a ridiculous version of a lamb, but that is supposed to be a ram, and that ram can actually open and close that origami book. And that was our biggest robotics achievement. RJ is making, not time lapse, but stop motion pictures. More supplies. This student was creating basically an iFold holder for his crutches. So kids would come up with their own ideas and they would come down to the makerspace and start thinking, okay, I've got a problem, how am I going to solve it? And that's where the transformation came in. This disappeared in days. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's very expensive. Just have kids create their own slime. Virtual book club in the makerspace. So this is us meeting with other schools, other students in other schools to talk about a book that we'd all read over the course of the month. The maintenance folks found some tables in storage, which they brought up to us, and we were thrilled. They were a great slate, is actually fabulous for chalk. And then we salvaged these books from the elementary school. These are bookshelves that are supposed to be two-sided bookshelves, but what we ended up doing was taking out the middle section to make them deep bookshelves so that we could store a lot of stuff in there. Elliot's vlog, we actually had to cap the number of students in the media lab because so many kids wanted to participate. So for a brief time, I moved my desk again to one of these fancy tables. And this is where the bookshelf project is kind of coming along. You can see that the deep storage was really important. We ditched this idea. We got a button maker, which was hugely popular. This is Ashley, and we also got a Cricut, which is a tool that allows students to make cutouts and art projects. It's a machine. I don't have a picture of it here. Storyboarding, about a documentary about the makerspace. This is a student who went on to Parsons to do film and art. Students just sort of randomly found the fabric and started to do sewing projects. We had to make a lot of posters to sort of remind students what it was about. Very random project about clearly a tactile project with pom-poms. Teacher comes by a few minutes later while it's drying and having a very good time with those pom-poms. This is the Cricut, and students make amazing projects in it. So we got a gaming console for the Raspberry Pi, and then we had students gaming a lot. We repurposed our book drops for take-apart stations so we could store things kind of out of the way. The button maker was hugely popular. Again, I relocated my desk, I moved there, and this arrangement was excellent because students sort of plop themselves down. I can spin my monitor around and be able to have them plug in or me plug in, and it's kind of in the middle of the makerspace. It's very low and accessible. Students really liked it, but also used it for professional learning. The chalk tables, we found chalk markers, which were really powerful. And here's the full project fleshed out from the bookshelves that we salvaged from the elementary schools. So we now have 80 bins of different kinds of materials that are all labeled on the bin, on the shelf, and students really have a great system to be able to put things away. Random teachers make too, so Jessica came in and made a happy birthday gift. This is what you can make on the Cricut. So literally you can cut things out, do design and cut things out, and you can customize it and program it from a phone or a computer. The buttons were great. This is a student who made basically a portfolio. She did buttons for all of the choice items in her art portfolio. We imaged some very old computers to have a little computer station here, and those were there was dual startup, so you could have Windows or Mac on on those computers. We found some sewing machines in storage, and within minutes, this is who was sewing, which was great. Really beautiful projects just randomly appearing out of nowhere. The student's parent wrote a letter to the superintendent saying, I don't really fully understand it, but my son loves the Makerspace. We had advisory in the Makerspace. We had a number of classes would come down every month. And we did a coding program for just girls in the Makerspace. And it wasn't that it was just girls, it was just that we had an English class that was only girls. And I said, this is a great opportunity. Let's do coding with this class. So for 8 weeks, we met once a cycle for 8 weeks in the Makerspace, and we did coding. This was a review project for AP World History. This was a pair of earrings that were made by one of our texperts. Backpack repair, again, a problem. I need to come to do it, to fix it. I'll find something in the Makerspace to help me. This is a prototype of a model for the Model Airplane Club. Students were gearing up for Allies Day as a club meeting. Fixed the tripod. Once the table became so overly decorated, they started using negative art. Like basically they ended up creating art by erasing away the excess. And then students would just start over. This is a board game in lieu of a book review. The Vex Robotics team came and demonstrated to try to recruit students in the Makerspace. They figured there would be a natural pairing there. This is just lunch in the Makerspace. This is a great project. Happy Mother's Day. She melted crayons. We were looking for recruits at the district-wide tech night. So this is these are 6th and 7th graders were displaying their stuff. So I wanted to talk to them about the Makerspace. Ben wanted to create a monster truck, so we got a Lego Mindstorm, but then he decided it really should be something else. So we made a photo album of our 80 bins so that students would have a sense of we didn't have to like open all the boxes. They could literally flip through and decide what, and we made photocopies of the photo album. So we have many, many copies of this photo album laying around. We also created a project planner. It's pretty much along the lines of design thinking. Puzzles, we put them out and we got new kids, like kids we hadn't seen in Makerspace before came. So you can see we suspended a lot of our string from the ceiling to display student work, and students really loved it. Like I said, parents and teachers did not. They found it very messy. And that's Ben's monster truck coming along. This student decided to make a sensory board for child development class. Lunch for Mother's Day. Student-faculty bonding. This was towards the end after the AP exam. Students, seniors, right before they went off to senior internship. This was one of the last days. A math challenge. These popsicle stick structures became incredible. They really were pretty amazing, and Amy and Charlie loved to work on that. Snap circuits. We bought them in the summer before, and it took until then when a textbook brought them out to introduce them to students before they actually took off. Ben is trying to figure out how to make music out of celery sticks with Makey Makey. We had an intern come, and so task number one was I would just give him projects like, could you figure out what to do with this? And he spent one morning on that. So there's a librarian desk, and I said it's very low with these funny little benches in front. We fill the benches with old books that were weeded so that they can't be moved very easily. We had students come in at the end of the year to create a video for the superintendent about the Makerspace. AP Calculus, after the exam, decided to tackle, they spent the whole 5 weeks coming to the Makerspace every day working on projects. Students, freshmen, were making aliens for an earth science project, and they were assigned to create an alien, and they chose to do it in 3D. Snap circuits stayed strong, more aliens. The comparative government was designing campaign materials after the AP exam. Clearly someone's birthday on the Cricut. Amy's structures still working strong. Monster truck parts came in, so Ben was pretty happy about that. This is Luca, who was our cactus garden creator, who decided to work on crystals for a while. We have a special alternative program, and students created, basically they wanted to explain the program in 3D form. There's the monster truck. Miles wanted to really find a way to make self-directed learning really magical and worthwhile for students, so he designed a program called Maker Majors. And that's the end of the year. So next, we wanted to have the Maker Majors. We have a lot of library furniture thoughts. So priority number one was a lab, because we were going to BYOD, so every student will be bringing their own computer. So we transformed a lab into basically a collaborative classroom. So we got a lot of tables. We went to different schools. This is the old room. And then there's the long-term planning, which is really what to do with our layout. And so this is one of the plans we're thinking of. And these were some of the 3D renderings for that. And this is really kind of this needs work. Like, we have a very big empty library. So here are the diagrams for what we were going to do in the collab, and this is what it looked like when we were done with it. And it's been a really useful space, and now we're going to do it with another one. So the priority for next year is coding, robotics, circuitry, and workshops. And we have a new librarian who is really a tech integrator, and she's just coming on board as a librarian. So our goal is to have her really be the Makerspace guide. And I think she's going to really be perfect for that job. So that's really all I had for today. I hope this was helpful in terms of giving you ideas on what a makerspace can do, what can be. And as I said, this is just a start. Thank you.